The heaviest drinking presidents in American history. Dive into the hidden side of the Oval Office, where presidential history is not just about policies but also about the personal indulgences of America's leaders. From the early days of the Republic, where hard cider beat out water, to the modern era where winning the public's heart often requires passing the beer test, this tale is steeped in intrigue and spirited tales. While we won't drop names just yet, be prepared to meet the night owls and bon vivants who've shaped the nation, sometimes with a glass in hand. Discover the stories of conviviality and caution, of presidents who could charm and disarm in equal measure. Stay tuned as we reveal who these fascinating figures are, painting a picture of America's past that promises to entertain and enlighten. Number 1. Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren, despite his presidency being marked by significant challenges such as the financial panic of 1837 and the Trail of Tears, was known for his ability to handle his liquor without showing signs of drunkenness. His affinity for alcohol earned him the affectionate nickname Blue Whiskey Van. John R. Bumgarner, in The Health of the Presidents, highlights that Van Buren was renowned for his capacity to drink substantial amounts without seeming intoxicated. Van Buren, aware of the potential consequences of his habits, once cautioned his son in a letter, emphasizing the difficulty of shaking off a reputation for indulgence. What you may regard as an innocent and harmless indulgence will take you years to overcome in the public estimate. His excessive drinking, particularly of wine, port, and Madeira, led to a severe case of gout by his 50s. Number 2. George W. Bush. George W. Bush's journey with alcohol is marked by years of misuse and instances of bad behavior, leading to a debate about whether he had an alcohol addiction. His reputation for heavy drinking dates back to his college days at Yale, celebrated more for his drunken frat boy antics than his academic achievements. Bush's drinking habits extended beyond college, leading to a DUI at the age of 30, which resulted in a fine and a temporary suspension of his drive license. This incident resurfaced during his presidential campaign in 2000, shedding light on his troubled relationship with alcohol. Bush's most infamous public outburst occurred in 1986 when, in a drunken state, he confronted a Wall Street Journal reporter with the words, "You expletive, son of a b, I saw what you wrote. We're not going to forget this." Recognizing the need for change, Bush, driven by an increasing commitment to his faith and a particularly severe hangover, quit drinking at the age of 40, deciding to turn a new leaf. Number 3. Warren G. Harding. Warren G. Harding's presidency, notorious for scandals and illicit liquor, contrasted his public prohibition support with private indulgence in alcohol, particularly during late-night poker sessions. Despite outwardly criticizing Americans for supporting bootleggers and frequenting speakeasies, Harding was caught drunk at an official meeting, undermining his public stance. Concerned about exposure, he concealed his liquor, but rumors persisted, damaging his reputation. Efforts to stop drinking in 1923 came too late, worsened by revelations that his Ohio gang associated with bootleggers. Number 4. Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, on the finer side of historical drinking, was a passionate wine aficionado, extensively documenting his interest. He faced distress when his wine supply dwindled, expressing in an 1815 letter his urgent need for quality wine for his health. "Disappointments in procuring supplies have at length left me without a drop of wine. I must therefore request you to send me a quarter cask of the best you have. Wine from long habit has become an indispensable for my health, which is now suffering by its disuse." Despite consuming significant amounts of alcohol, Jefferson advocated for wine over spirits, aiming to shift American preferences towards lighter French-style wines. Attempting to cultivate vines at Monticello, he hoped to influence U.S. wine culture. His preference for white Hermitage was so strong that he once ordered 550 bottles to ensure ample supply. Number 5. Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson's rowdy demeanor extended to his drinking habits, creating public scandal in the 1960s. In 1964, Time magazine exposed Johnson's dangerous drink driving, reporting him speeding with a beer-sipping distance away, while attempting to conceal his speed from reporters by throwing his hat over the speedometer. Joseph Califano, in his memoir, recounted Johnson's routine of drinking scotch and soda while driving, describing how Johnson would signal for refills, he would hold his left arm outside the car, shaking the cup and ice. A Secret Service agent would run up to the car, take the cup, and go back to the station wagon. There another agent would refill it, then the first agent would run the refilled cup up to LBJ's outstretched arm and waiting hand. Johnson, accustomed to ending days with scotch, curtailed his drinking due to Vietnam War stress. Number 6. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidency was marked not only by significant political achievements but also by his fondness for cocktails, reflecting a lighter side amidst the era's challenges. Roosevelt, who joyously repealed prohibition, was enthusiastic about his cocktail hour, or the children's hour, as he playfully termed it, inspired by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem. This period allowed him to experiment with mixtures, albeit with mixed success. His attempts at cocktail crafting, especially martinis, were met with polite skepticism, even from Joseph Stalin. Curtis Roosevelt, his grandson, humorously noted that FDR possibly made the worst cocktails in the world, yet Roosevelt's experimentation led to the popularization of the dirty martini and the creation of the Haitian libation, showcasing his innovative spirit in mixology. Regularly, Roosevelt enjoyed 2 to 3 cocktails after dinner, maintaining a balance between his leadership duties and personal relaxation. However, it was his spirited evenings with Winston Churchill, filled with brandy, cigars, and profound discussions, that epitomized Roosevelt's ability to blend governance with conviviality, despite the toll these sessions took on him. Number 7. George Washington. George Washington, setting a precedent for presidential consumption, celebrated the 1787 Constitutional Convention with a staggering bar tab that in today's terms would equal $15,400, according to the Washington Post. This memorable event saw Washington and 55 attendees consume 54 bottles of Madeira, 60 of claret, and an assortment of other drinks, ensuring that staff at the city tavern could join in the festivities. Beyond such grand occasions, Washington's daily regimen, as depicted by Washington Irving in George Washington, a biography, included beer or cider and several glasses of Madeira after dinner, with a particular fondness for beer leading him to take up brewing. He even established a whiskey distillery at Mount Vernon, producing rye and brandies. One of his beer recipes was later brought to life by the Coney Island Brewing Company, albeit for a brief period. Number 8. James Buchanan. James Buchanan, the 19th century president known as Old Buck, was infamous for his enormous liquor intake, often purchasing 10 gallons of whiskey at a time. His friend John Forney, a well-known newspaper magnate, remarked on Buchanan's vast consumption of Madeira and sherry, suggesting it could fill more than one old cellar, and lauded his taste in rye whiskey as something that would make Jacob Bear's heart glad. Forney observed that Buchanan's ability to drink substantial amounts without apparent intoxication was remarkable, noting, "The rye whiskey that he has punished would make an old British sea captain weep joyful tears." However, despite Buchanan's seemingly unaffected demeanor, his heavy drinking ultimately took its toll, leading to a debilitating case of gout later in life. Number 9. Ulysses S Grant. Ulysses S Grant's tenure as an army officer and later as a Civil War general was marked by his struggle with alcohol. His excessive drinking led to his resignation from the army in 1854. Historian W. H. Brand, in The Man Who Saved the Union, points to Grant's early military days in California as the start of his heavy drinking, noting the prevalent culture of intoxication among officers. One lieutenant recalled, "There was not a day passed but what these officers were drunk at least once, and mostly until the wee hours of the morning." Grant, described as becoming childlike after a few glasses, was notorious for his inability to handle alcohol. Despite controversies over Grant's sobriety during key battles of the Civil War, public speculation and press accusations often blamed his drinking for any setbacks, particularly at Shiloh and during the Vicksburg campaign. However, views on his drinking habits vary, with some, including his wife, defending his character. By the time he became president, Grant had largely moderated his drinking. Number 10. Franklin Pierce. Franklin Pierce's presidency and life were deeply affected by alcoholism. After losing his party's nomination, Pierce's declaration, "There's nothing left but to get drunk," underscored his battle with the condition. Despite efforts, including support from his devout wife and a brief engagement with the temperance movement, Pierce's heavy drinking resumed, exacerbated by personal tragedies such as the death of his son. His drinking worsened after leaving office, with historian John R. Bumgarner noting in Health of the Presidents that Pierce's family had a history of alcoholism. Pierce suffered from alcohol-related health issues like neuralgia and chronic gastritis, ultimately succumbing to cirrhosis of the liver in 1869.